of construction recently, and I reached out to my Facebook friends and acquaintances, and just asking about experience on low-cost housing. And I got quite a number of responses, very positive responses. And one of the responses, or rather, I think 3 or 4 of them had tagged the modular team. And I thought, let me reach out to them. Let me see what they're doing. Actually, they reached out to me. And it was amazing. I went on a tour with one of the architects, got to see the houses that are being constructed. They're using the InstaHome technology. And I thought this was a very interesting innovation, I think, in this space. So got to know Edward, who's the chief architect and the managing director of modular construction team, as well as Edge Atelier architects. So we've been having this series. We plan to have a number of them. Just looking at the construction space, we had a lot of interest from people last time. I think almost 600 people dialed in just to get to know what we're going to talk about. We covered a number of topics. There's a newsletter that was released. Do let us know in the chats if you'd want a copy by just sharing your email address, and the team would be happy to send it through. But generally what we covered was basics of construction, basically who is an architect, who is a QS, engineers, both structural, civil, electrical, what to look out for when purchasing property before construction, and then the different construction materials I think were covered. We had planned to have only an hour's time with the team, but because of the interest, we actually spilled over to 1.5 hours. And so even in this webinar, we are going to have 1.5 hours just talking about how can we make building easy and demystifying many of these concepts around them. We also had questions on the particular construction technique that is a prefab modular technique. And I think we didn't have enough time to cover the questions. So during this session, we're going to go back to a few of the questions that came through our emails or came through the chat box that were not able to be covered. We have back on stage Edward, who's going to introduce himself, and then following that, we'll run through a video of around 4 minutes, just going to showcase something that's going on in the rest of the world. And then we delve into the questions that were not answered at the time. And finally, I think in 20 minutes or so, we should go into our topic, which is the money matters around building. So thank you so much, Edward. Over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Dr. My name is Edward Mugo. I am the principal at both EDG and Atelier, which is an architectural company, as well as Modular Group, which is a steel fabrication company. We pride ourselves for being different from the other contractors. We love steel, and everything about us is steel, so we move ahead with it. Yeah, one of the things I think we talked about last time was which other products are available for building, not just brick and mortar and not just steel. I think we talked about EPS. We talked, EPS is expanded polystyrene sheets. You must have seen new buildings with the whitish looking paper-like stuff with wire mesh. That is called EPS. We talked about stabilized soil blocks, the Makiga block, as it's called. We talked about panel technology, concrete panel technology, which has a few players in the market. And all of them have their pluses and minuses. But the end of the day is that they are all alternative building methods. And why they're alternative is because they depart from the norm. And I think the norm in Kenya, in East Africa, is basically stone and brick. In areas where local stone is not available, then you have your brick, stabilized brick burnt locally with local people. You can get proper burnt brick in an urban setting, but a lot of rural folk burn actually their own bricks. So I'm here with my team, and we'll be happy to answer any queries that will emanate from this and even the first chat. And yes, I look forward to engaging with our passion. Our passion is actually to build for Kenyans, to make sure Kenyans are housed in decent housing without spending all the money there. I've seen horror stories when it comes to people and their homes. They start on a project, they thought it was going to take 3 or 4 million or 2 million. It ends up turning to a 6 million project, 10 million project that is not finished. So whatever the number you start your housing, with proper instruction, proper consultation, you should generally finish within that mark, probably 5% up or down. But it cannot be that you are spending 2 or 3 times what it is that you plan for. It takes your finances right off the roof. Yeah, so it's a passion for me to make sure that to encourage Kenyans to use the correct path in making sure that they make the correct decisions when it comes to building a home. And when I talk about building a home, this could be even an investment. It could be rooms for rent. It could be an apartment block. You could have a corporate wanting to get into an office block, or a corporate wanting to get into a factory. The steps are the same. The thought process is the same. The numbers could have a few more zeros, but the thought processes, whether they're individual or corporate, are the same. So I think that's my joy, Daktari, to see as many Kenyans as possible get rewarded well, to enjoy walking into a finished, completed house or office block or apartment block. A lot of times, these processes end in tears. I have to say that this was driven. There's a series of videos I removed over the last 3 years called The Architect by Edward Mugo. And this series of videos, I think there were 33 of them, were brought about because at that point, there were apartments that fell down. I think I remember one sad case where somebody in Dandora who had built next to a river at the riparian reserve lost his property worth 50 million. And you could tell that Mzee, that was basically all his life's work, all his life saving, gone down because of lack of information. So yes, we got into this space just to educate people. Look, there are ways you can do this and do this well. There are pitfalls you can see, you can be educated about them, and you sidestep them. So yes, Daktari, I'll be happy to take it up. And after the video, we're going to what it is that we've planned for tonight.
Okay. So thank you so much, Edward, for demystifying a lot of the stuff that it goes towards construction. And I'd like to request our co-host from the modular team to just share the screen and run the video. This video has been trending this week. I thought it was interesting for us to see in terms of construction, where the future of construction is, and perhaps one day we will get there. So over to you, Abigail.
This house was 3D printed in a week, partly from waste, including material from old, demolished buildings. And this is the world's first 3D printed community. 2 houses have already been printed, with 50 planned in total. They will be available to people living on less than $3 a day in a bid to fight homelessness. And the use of printed buildings is now being seen in Europe. Germany just certified a printed house under its national building regulations, paving the way for the planning of a whole 3D printed apartment block in Bavaria. This is all part of the 4th Industrial Revolution, which could bring some major upgrades to your future home and perhaps your body. This is from our sister channel, Digital Engine. This is Wallenhausen, the largest 3D printed building in Europe, with 5 apartments over 3 levels. The printer that made this structure can be operated with just 2 people. It can print at up to 1 meter per second. The printer that created Wallenhausen and others like it print in concrete. The Pt.2 3D printer takes just 24 hours to print a 200-meter house. This printer, called Pt.2, can print 3-story buildings. These flaps deal with the sausage wall problem that otherwise requires finishing by hand. And this printer looks like a sci-fi robot spider. It rapidly spins walls around itself based on your designs before letting itself out through a door. And the Hadrian X can build a house in 3 days. It's mounted on a truck for easy transportation, with bricks moving through a 30-meter telescopic boom. Adhesive is applied, and the bricks are laid precisely, constantly adjusting for any wind or vibration. The printer can lay 1,000 bricks an hour. That's around 2 days' work for a human bricklayer. Printed buildings mean major advantages, not only for owners, but also for the environment. This design by Italian company Wasp features an outer shell printed from agricultural waste, like straw and rice husks, which are also used for insulation. 3D printed walls allow more flexibility to optimize heat and noise insulation. And Wasp says this building won't need heating or air conditioning, as it naturally maintains a comfortable temperature throughout the year via passive cooling and heating. The total cost of materials for the outer shell is just $1,000. And multiple printers working together can be used to build larger structures. Researchers recently created a soil-based material designed to replace concrete in printed buildings. Soil and plant cellulose can both be sourced from the local area. The aim is to replace concrete, which accounts for up to 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions from human activities. A main ingredient in concrete is cement, and processing cement and then mixing the concrete requires huge amounts of energy, mostly from fossil fuels. And builders must then transport it over long distances. Construction accounts for 39% of all carbon emissions in the world. So more energy-efficient building methods are urgently needed. And 3D printing also promises to cut costs.
Printing a home in 24 hours for half the cost, 50%. That's kind of the overarching goal here at Icon.
And it could help with the rising housing shortage and homelessness crisis in countries like the United States. This house.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abigail. So, Mugo, when are we getting this in Kenya?
We
have it,
there.
by the way, in the health space. We already have 3D printing of medical devices, and I think it's going into organs now. So I was very interested to see 3D printing for construction. What do you think about it?
Yes, I think the technology is there, certainly. Even here in Kenya, we know in Nairobi there are 3D printers available for small gadgets, small plastics, very popular with plastic things. Yes, it is possible to do 3D printing. At the scale we've seen it, is just bigger machines that can hold the weight of the concrete and the accuracy involved. Obviously, it will take a while before that becomes a reality here, because it is actually probably a play on economies of scale. How many people can afford to bring in that machine here? You also have to play with the fact that in Europe, labor is very expensive, and in America, here our labor is extremely cheap. So it's probably a need perspective that may not be. But I think things start that way, and you find over time, even Kenya and African countries will follow suit, because that's what the rest of the world is going to get into. Yes, it's exciting because it saves our environment. We do have other alternative materials. I remember when I was in the university, there was research being carried out on sugarcane waste, whether sugarcane waste from Miwani, the sugar belt factories, can be used to make building types. And I do remember in our R&D development in the university, this was actually a reality. We saw build types or blocks being done by biological waste. Now, about the longevity of those types of blocks, I wouldn't say. But yes, we do need to replace the concrete. And I do agree that going forward, that's where we'll head to. But right now we are here. We are trying to replace stone. Let's start with replacing stone, even as we go towards printing the concrete. Yes.
Good.
I think, yes, thank you for that video. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was discussing with Architect Mugo before and challenging him to be the first to bring that machine here. I think we all look forward towards getting into this space. Corona has taught us that we have the brains. It's just the resources of research and of course manufacturing that we need to up our games. So I will quickly go through a couple of questions that stemmed from last session. For those who just joined us, the first webinar was around different building technologies, and Architect Mugo took us through the BBF. I think you will clarify what BBF is. And someone who is talking about the structural integrity and stability of it. I think guys are still like, doubting Thomas, like, will this thing really stand? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. BBF is a technology that has been there for a while. It's called beam-to-beam flooring, which simply means it's actually a concrete-based solution to a floor, as opposed to having a poured where the concrete is liquid and is poured as a slab. This comes pre-stressed and pre-tensioned. The beams, small beams, are carried from the factory according to your house, the measurement of the house. They are placed there. Then the spaces between them is filled by hollow pots, which now is you pour a slight small cover of 2 inches of concrete above. What that does, it saves you time. It saves you money because you don't have props that hold up the concrete and the slabs that hold up the concrete, and the level of pour is quite small. So yes, it is cheaper than a regular slab. It's fast, and it's a novel alternative use of materials. It's been there for a while over the years. In Kenya, we've seen it probably over the last 5 to 6 years being used fairly widely. Over the last 2 years, it's actually taken root quite a bit. So you can build your house. You need to do the concrete beam around your house. Then this beam to beam now sits. Those pre-tension beams sit on the beams. Yes, I'm sure on the net there are videos that show you exactly how that works. So that's beam to beam. I've used it once before in my architectural life. Yes, I would recommend if you get a good engineer, a good company that is actually able to calculate for you properly and make sure that the beam sizes are up to spec. It's as strong as regular solid beam slab. So that I don't have a problem with. It's a function of who the engineer is, who the contractor is, but they are specialists in that field, and they will give you their guarantee. The beauty about a lot of these products, especially being made by companies that are in it for as a business, they end up giving you a guarantee on the product and on the process. So they give you a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year guarantee. So that is not a bad space to be in. I would not recommend that you buy the products and you do it yourself. I would recommend that the company comes, assesses it, does it themselves, so that they now can stand on their guarantee.
Okay. Thank you. We have a couple of questions which I'll combine, which is about the professionals. I think we tackled the whole team that works so that is behind the scenes to ensure a building is erected. And Beverly asked whether you can make any recommendations of one-stop shops. Do you guys have like a database of architectural or rather construction teams that are there? And what she says is that she's looking more for reasonable costing. And I think this is why we are here today. We are going to look at the money matters. She's tired of being gongwad in Nairobi. She wants to be guaranteed quality and time. And she's also not interested in getting to know whether, how many bags of cement have come to the site or jumping on the lorries to confirm haijagongwa. And this is a reality. I mean, I was putting up a mabati structures and trust me, niligongwa in just putting up a mabati structure. So do you have like that database that people can, refer to as in the construction industry? Yeah.
Yes, like all professionals, we are governed by a code of conduct. All architects, QSA, structural engineers, civil structural and engineering, electrical and mechanical are governed by their codes, various codes, depending on the profession they are doing. For us as architects, we are under the board of architects of registration of architects and quantity surveyors. Why am I saying all this? There are people out there who call themselves we are architects, but are not actually registered by the board as architects. Now, that person is not registered by the board and is therefore not allowed to practice as an architect. He could have training that allows him to know how to draw a house or two, but he does not have the professional training and even the risk taking. When you're entering into a project, then your architect takes a professional risk in what it does for you. And that is why our companies have to have an indemnity insurance, a PI insurance, so that if anything goes wrong in our working with the client, then the client is at liberty to go to an insurance company and demand payment for poor services rendered. You can imagine if you're an engineer, if your house got a crack and that crack costs you a lot of money to repair, who pays you that money? And probably it was by poor design, not necessarily by the contractor, poor design. Who do you go to? You go to his body, his registration body, registration of Engineers of Kenya, I think, but the Board of Kenya, the EBK, and you say that was my engineer, he didn't do a good job, these are his certificates, this is his name, then his PI in profession, the indemnity will be engaged to pay you. So it is important that when you're getting into any project of construction, and this is a very small one, but generally any project that is costing you money, serious money, and serious money could be even $500,000. It is serious to you. It doesn't matter the quantum, whether you take that money seriously or not. Do you want to lose it or do you want to protect it? It costs you a little bit to work with a professional, more than a quack, but believe you me, it does save you money. Because that same engineer can save you a lot of money by designing structural reinforcement that fits your house. The fundi you use directly would cost you a lot of money because he doesn't have the skills to design an optimum design for you. So he overdoes it for you, and you end up spending a lot of money for that. She had also asked, if I remember the question right, whether there is a body. The body now is a board of registration of architects. The engineering, the registration board of Kenya is available, and they have their rota of duly paid up members, professional members who are up to their payment rules. It doesn't mean that your house needs to be done specifically by an architect, but you could also get a registered architectural assistant with enough experience who's done his HND and added on experience, who can deliver for you a very good design and supervision. It is important also to recognize that if you want a turnkey, what she was describing, if a product is turnkey, meaning that you don't want to deal with people, you don't want to deal with too many people, you want to deal with one party, and that party now takes over and manages the whole process for you. That can either be done by an architect who agrees to do a project which is turnkey, takes over, gives the project to a contractor, gives the project to an engineer, quantity surveyors, but manages the team so that that team now delivers the product for you. It could also be a project manager, an independent project manager who is not necessarily an architect, could be trained as an engineer or even trained as a PM, separate. We use them a lot, especially when it comes to projects that require many different professionals, probably 5-8 different professionals. Then you get a project manager who ties everyone together and make sure we're all running and walking the same path. Now, that professional has to be fairly experienced to run all these team members. And you find some of the most successful project management teams are fairly experienced. If you look at their experience level, it's quite high, even the professionals they are in. So it is possible to do a turnkey project, but it is important that everything is made clear at the beginning. You don't want to hire an architect and the architect tells you later, hey, by the way, I can also build for you. It is important that, like, for example, what we design as architects, in fact, my two companies are separated. What we design as architects, Modular is not allowed to tender for those ones. Though the converse is not true. Modular can ask EDG to help it with a design or two, because it adds value to the products and the clients of modular. So it is important that if you hire an architect for architectural services, then he carries out his work as an architect. A lot of problems are caused when the owners want then to use the architect as a builder or as a turnkey service provider, and those terms were not agreed on at the beginning. It's not illegal though. It is just very clear that the law tells us, it is very clear the cap allows us to do that work, but it is very clear that we should say that at the beginning. The contract should recognize that if the architects or even the engineers coming in as turnkey, then that has to be very, very clear from the beginning with terms and deliverables going forward. Yes, wow. So it depends on your team. Choose a good team at the beginning, you'll have fun in your project. And also recognize that professionals are paid by time. Really, we don't have any other way to look at it. It's our time that is paid for. So please recognize that even as you employ your professionals, that you consider the payment to their time. Again, this payment is a guide. You can meet with your professional and negotiate what level of time input you want them to have in your project. And the more that time input is, then you need to pay them a little bit more. But I can't cheat, there are many architects, many engineers, and I'm sure you'll find a perfect fit that fits you and fits the project.
Well,
I don't know if there was something that I missed out on that.
I think you've covered it quite well. I never knew that that you need to declare upfront if you're going to do both the design work and also be part of the construction team. So I want to bring us to the issue of money. Yeah, yes. So I have this, let's say 1 million shillings. Yeah. And I come to you and I tell you, Edward, I want a house worth 1 million. Because me as a person, my biggest issue is the budget. Yeah, but then I have my dream of what I want to maybe live in. How do you go about advising me? So take me through. I tell you, here's 1 million shillings. I need a house by, let's say, in 6 months. What would be your consideration?
First is my first question to ask, do you have a plot or don't you have a plot? If you have a plot, it makes things a bit easy.
I hadn't even thought of the plot bit. Yes, okay. So let's say I've identified an eighth somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
And you purchase. Okay.
Yes.
So the key thing is to marry your dreams to your money.
Yes.
So it is I have found in my time as an architect that marriage is sometimes very far off, in the sense that people have bigger dreams than what they can afford. So you come and tell me you want a 4-bedroom house, each 4-bedroom self-contained. So we need now to contain that thought process and contain it with the money that is there. And I tell people it's a very easy experiment you can do. Take the money you have, describe to the architect what kind of finishing you want in your house, standard finishes, executive finish. If they're standard finishes, a typical house in Nairobi, not using our product, using normal regular build will cost you 40,000 shillings per square meter. So 1 million shillings divided by 40,000 shillings per square meter would give us a house of 25 square meters. Am I correct? And 25 square meters is actually a room, slightly bigger than a master bedroom. So that is the way you would work it out. If, say, you have 10 million shillings and you want to put up a house in Nairobi, do the same math, it gives you a home of 250 square meters. Now, that's where you start from. And what does 250 or 200 square meters give you? It can give you a 4-bedroom house, it can give you a 5-bedroom house. How big are the sizes of the bedrooms? How big are the sizes of the living room? But I tell people it is very, very, very clear that you get a marriage between the size of home you want, or the size of house you want, or the size of apartment you want, with the amount of money, the total budget amount that you want to spend. So sit down with your family, agree on a number. Let's say we want a home of not more than 4 million shillings. Now, what can 4 million get me? If we divide by even standard finishes at 40,000, it can give me a house of between 100 and 120 square meters. Now, how many bedrooms can that give? And the bedrooms are not too small. you'd find you now put up a house bedroom of about 3 bedrooms, with a living room, a dining, a kitchen, a comfortable house for about 4 million. So that is the way I would look at it. Where is the plot? Is the plot in an area? Very, very key thing, and I wanted to talk about this in terms of finances. When you're buying your property, kindly do what we call a trial pit. Because if you're doing, especially with the regular build of stone and mortar, what you find underground, what you find on the surface of the ground, if you dig it and dig a hole which is 1 or 2 meters deep, will give you a lot about how much money you're going to spend. The best case scenario.
Sorry, Edward.
Yeah.
When you mean a trial pit, do you mean I actually go and drill a hole, or are there machineries, or with a djembe?
No,
just be practical about that trial pit. I can't imagine it.
Just get a casual laborer to dig with a djembe. In a day, he'll dig for you a hole.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, preferably, preferably you should do this before you buy the plots. Before.
I'm yet to see someone who'll allow you to do that.
A lot of times, if the seller is serious about selling, you can, even if not on the site, if somebody else is building as a neighbor, if a neighbor is building, you're able to see. There are people, Daktari, who bought a reused the quarries, where the quarry has been backfilled with black cotton soil, and there's no depth to the there's no end to the depth of black cotton soil. So it is important, if you don't have a neighbor who is building next, that shows you how deep you need to, if it's black cotton soil especially, you need to be extremely careful. But even in areas of red soil, Daktari, and why I need to say this, why you need a set of professionals, that's the next step. Once you've identified that the soil is good, get up. Even at that point, if you can get an engineer to walk with you that path, an engineer friend to just walk with you and tell you this ground is fine. There's an area called Waka in Nairobi where I don't know if you remember a case last year, was it last year or last year but one, where a flat settled. The first floor slab came down to rest on the ground floor. And it settled gently. It went down all of it. It didn't break apart.
People woke up and found their windows at ground
You're on
level.
first floor in the morning, you wake up in the morning, you're on ground floor. It sunk down. That I looked up and I investigated, and we found that that area has red soil, but underneath there's an underground river in some areas. So depending on the weight of the building above it, that red soil, when you've looked at it, it looks on the surface to be very solid. But because of the weight, and depending on how much water gets in, the building weight now becomes too heavy for the underlying soil, and it caves in. That is extremely important. So if you have an engineer, before you put up a block of flats, do something they call a geotechnical investigation. You spend some bit of money with it, probably 70, 80,000, but it is the most critical test you can do before you spend your millions on an apartment. Most critical tests. So these are the things that a professional brings to the party. So without digressing, agree that the plot is okay. If the plot is fine, get a set of professionals to help you. If, depending on the state of the home, you may need just an architect and a quantity surveyor and an engineer. If it's not a banker, and an engineer to make sure it stands properly, foundations are designed well. Negotiate with them, then critically talk to your architectural team. Confirm that your budget fits your need all the way to the end. There are people who say, I have 4 or 5 million now, but I don't mind designing a home of 8 million because so long as it's livable with a roof, I can move in and do my finishing slowly. So that so long as you are in the picture, so long as you're aware how much it will cost at the end, and you're happy to go with that route, then that's okay. It is important for you to be guided that a lot of time, the longer you spend in a project, the more expensive it becomes. Shorter eventually are cheaper to run with. Projects that go on for 5, 6 years, and I think anyone who's built for that long will tell you the money they have spent, if they look backwards, they would not have spent that money. They would not have spent. It's probably even sometimes better to borrow the money, finish it in a shorter time, then you're left paying the financier.
And would you advise looking at the money and then choosing the design based on the 40,000 square feet space? Or is it easier to say, this is the house that I want, and then now let me look for the money and see, okay, this is the far I can stretch, I can't, let's cut down on this and that. Is it a chicken and egg situation?
Yeah, it's that chicken. A lot of times and I think we've had this conversation where a lot of times the places we want to live, we can't afford the land. So you find that if you do your math properly, that even the land sometimes is much more expensive than the house you want to build. So it depends on what you want. But again, it also depends on your income. Is your income linear? Or is it, or can you do a hit a deal and money is there? But if your income is linear, you know exactly what you're going to earn every month, then I think it is a good idea to design within a fixed amount of money. Why? Because you are sure that that money will be coming in for, unless something happens like COVID and somebody's laid off. But for me, I would want a linear person, depending on your income. If you're in business and you know business goes up and down, and you know that sometimes you can get a lump sum and throw it into the project, then that's when now you can design for money in future you're expecting to make, depending on history. If you've done that over the last few years and you know funds are going to come in from deals, then therefore you can take that leap of faith and say, look, I expect to make a deal and I throw some money in it. But if you're sure your income is linear, is not going to increase, then it will be a mistake to overplan for future earnings where you're not sure they're coming from. Okay. So I tell people, you not underplan. If you want to, and again, make the decision. It could be that, do you need to make, and those are the financial issues one need to come up with. Do you need to put a home actually saves you rent? That's the main part, other than the emotional part of a home. The financial part of a home, it just saves you rent. So if you can move, if your rent, say, is 20,000 shillings, and your home of 4 or 5 million shillings or 10 million saves you that 20,000 shillings. And by the way, not all of it, because that home will cost some money in terms of servicing. It needs some maintenance. It needs, depending on where you are, it needs a dog, probably it needs some veterinary, it needs some mascari, it needs some electrical work. There's some services, it cannot be zero. Even if it's your own home, there's some service charge you need to pay to maintain the home. So the decision, and there's a couple I advised about 2 years ago. They came and told me, look, they are getting some money and they would want to put up a home in a good area of Nairobi, and they are struggling. They want to pay that money off in 20, 25 years, taking mortgages and whatever. So I told them, if that's all the money you have and you're trying to get this money, why don't you go and put up rental units? Go lease property for 20 years, 30 years. You put up rental units that increase your income. In the next 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, you are going to see an increment in your income by about 500 to 600,000 Kenya shillings, which now can be used to put up your home comfortably for 2 years and still leave you with units earning you money till the lease period is over. What that does now, it allows you to sit back, say, look, we can continue paying rent for 2 years, but in 2 years' time, we have put the money for the home in some income-generating rental units that allow you now to pay back your mortgage much, much faster. So at the end of the day, the only money it saves you a home is your rent. I have seen people getting into mortgages where you're getting a mortgage and you're paying crazy amounts of money, 800, 900,000 shillings a month. And where you are staying, you are paying a rent of 100, 150,000. So those decisions should be weighed with the seriousness they deserve, because a lot of people then wouldn't be staying. And if anything happens, if you're in a very high mortgage home, if anything happens to your income, if there's any shake like COVID, then you will discover what problems are, because the banks will come for you. The banks will come for you. If you can't keep up with that mortgage payment, the bank will come for you. And I tell people, even if you're in that position and something happened to your asset, that asset has a residual value. Probably you've invested in a good home which you spend 5 million on. Now the home plus the land is worth 15 million. Job disappears. Job disappears. You have a mortgage to pay. Your mortgage, you are remaining another 5-6 million to pay. I would encourage you to even sell off that home, pay clear off your mortgage, take that money, reinvest it in something else which you can afford without the mortgage, because you don't know. Those homes will be there for you to buy. If you recover and you're able to buy, you'll recover. But if you allow mortgage to go to the end, which is auction, you are not going to recover. You're not going to recover. No matter how big your home, how small your home is, if you can't continue with the mortgage payments, consider letting it go back even to rental the apartments, step back a bit so that you can now get the strength to come back in a more positive manner later on. So the financial aspect of either owning a home, renting a home, or tenant leasing a home are very critical initial discussions one should have with themselves, or if you're in a family, with your better spouse. So it's important that those decisions are clear so that you don't get into something else that will actually stretch you beyond. And you always have to factor in, if the worst came to the worst and I didn't have money, would I keep this home or not? Yeah.
I think those are critical questions, and I want to ask you one question that you'll answer after I read out Anne Morimi's question. So my question is, you as an architect, is there a point where, you know, a client comes to you, like I came to you, and then I told you, look, this is what I want to put up, this is the amount of money I have. Is there a point where you tell someone, come back to reality, and you actually turn down your services because you see the potential pitfall, the potential financial pitfall that your client might be getting to? So park that for the second question. So back to Anne Morimi. So Anne Morimi says she has this amount of money, it's her savings, no mortgage, not a loan. And she wants to walk with you the journey of construction, which is especially using the modular team or the Insta homes. So how does she plan her money so that it's, if you agreed that it's going to be 4 million and I have the 4 million, do I give it all to you and then I tell you, you know what, after 3 months, call me when the house is done? How do you ensure that that 4 million is spread out of maybe the 3-6 months adequately to actually cover the whole construction, and I don't have to go back to dig deeper into my pocket to add some more?
Okay, very good question. I think the important thing is to start from where I said, talk to your architectural team, agree on what you want to design. Once that is agreed on what you want to design, and at that point, we are working on numbers, overall preliminary numbers. We have done per square meter. It's coming to about 4 million. Now, once we finalize the design, we take it now to a quantity surveyor. Quantity surveyor says, now to the detail of the blocks, the cement, the panels, everything. You thought it was coming to 4 million, but it has come to 4.12 thousand. Well, 4.12 million. Now, it is always good in any bill of quantities, there is normally a 5 to 7% contingency. Why is that number there? The number is there because cement can go through the roof because of what the government does or what international markets do. Still right now, steel is in a very tight space. We've had an increment of steel about 30% since December. I kid you not, 30% increment in steel prices since December. So that contingency has to be factored in because of factors beyond the control of the contractor or even by you the owner. Things happen. So that contingency is very important. So it comes to around 4.3, 4.4. So my question to Anne is, are you comfortable with that number? If you say no, whittle down the areas, whittle down the finishes. I would say if you have 4 million, design for about 3.5. So there's a leeway, there's a small buffer zone you can work in. Every company has its own modus operandi of working. There's a deposit to be paid, the second payment to be paid, the third payment to be paid. When the house is finished, there is normally a 5% leftover, which is paid after somebody has moved in for about 3 to 6 months as a defects liability period. Meaning if you move in and there's a light bulb which has fallen down, the contractor can come back, fix it for you at no cost, because he's allowed to take that period. That period is called defects liability, which now comes any small problem, a door is not locking properly, there's a crack, plaster crack somewhere, the contractor comes and repairs them at no cost to yourself. Now, that is a journey one needs to work together. If, for example, the journey is longer, assuming the journey is longer and the funds are larger, then it will be something to think about to lock the money in an income generating money market scheme that allows you to draw down your money as per the progress of the development, so that money is not sitting idle in a current account. It's earning for you some 8-10% somewhere, even as you wait on the contractor going past the various stages. You'll find some contractors would ask you, turnkey projects would ask you to put the money in an escrow account, either with a bank or with a lawyer, that allows, once they reach a certain milestone, some money is released to them. Once they go to another milestone, some money is released to them. And obviously, I would like to encourage people, please visit your sites. There's no one who, we are all human. There's no one who may not make a mistake. Even you as a client, you may see a room on the drawing, it's perfect, but as it's being built, you have a change of heart and say, look, can we make this a bit bigger? Can we make this a bit smaller? Can we make the window sizes a bit bigger? Which has an effect on the cost. But you say, look, I know it will increase the cost by another 10,000 shillings, but it's okay. I'm able to live with this because I want my window sizes a bit bigger than they are. That kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think to come to your question.
Yes.
I didn't answer yours. Can I use you as an example?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, like when you came to us, you wanted a certain product for your property, but we discussed, because our goal, and I think my goal in life, is for me not just to do what you tell me to do. We have to go through the business proposition you are doing. If that business proposition doesn't make sense, then it's up to me as a professional to advise you. But at the end of the day, if you don't accept my advice, then it's your house, it's your money, I'll do what you want. But at least there's some advice we've given you. I remember there was a client who came to us, he wanted on an area somewhere on Gong Road, he wanted to put up a block of offices. And that time, block of offices were really a dime-a-dozen and they were everywhere. We managed to encourage him to think about a boutique hotel, and that's what they are going to put up now. We were happy that even after doing the numbers, we do our convincing with even spreadsheets and numbers, so that somebody is sure that if you're putting up an apartment block, do you put up 1 bedroom? Do you put up 2 bedrooms? Do you put up 3 bedrooms? The other day, my team was in Kitengela for 3 days, just doing an analysis to find out a client of ours who wants to put up an apartment block. What can we give him? What is making money? Is it bed sitters? Is it 1 bedroom? Is it 2 bedrooms? And we're able now to go with empirical data that shows that this is what we are going to do, because these are the returns for the units that we're going to put up. The worst thing I would hate to imagine is for me to be involved in a project that is an elephant, white elephant. People are not moving in. Even you're home, you're not even enjoying it. So it is important that work with a team that looks at the bigger picture. It is our role to advise the clients, because we have data which you may not have some access to. We work within the confines of business. Yes, what is good for that area? What is good within the zoning? You might come and say, I have a project in a residential area and I want to put up a block of 5-story buildings. It's up to me to tell you the zoning laws do not allow for that. And if you're buying it for that resort, then you need to change and move to another plot. So the zoning laws in Nairobi are very, very key. If you have time, get into the website for CCN, City Council of Nairobi -NCC. I can't remember the website name, but once you start City Council of Nairobi, there's a zoning plan that allows you, that shows you every part of Nairobi and what can be put up where, and including the coverages of what is allowed. We'll be happy to take you through and guide you even, and I think a lot of these conversations, Daktari, are good before the property is purchased. Many architects are available to anybody. Look for an experienced friend of yours, an architect, without charge. Many of us wouldn't charge you to go and advise you. I'm looking at this plot, this is what I want to do. advise me. I'm happy to advise you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make the mistake for lack of knowledge.
Yeah, I think it's I have never thought, honestly, of involving an architect in purchase of property, because I think we are in this space where we just buy property.
Yeah.
Because it's the in thing, our circle has bought 100 plots somewhere, it's disposing of them off.
Yes.
You go and buy without knowing what you'll do with it in the future. So what would you also advise, now that you're on that topic, in terms of purchasing land? Is it wise to purchase just to hold? Is it wise to, I know you're in the architectural space, and maybe a financier would really help in this, but we have that peculiar habit as Kenyans. Yeah, we all rush to Kamulo, we buy properties. The other day I was taking my chama there. We bought this property, I think, in 2008. And Edward, I'll tell you, we had not visited it for like 10 years.
Yes.
And so we were like, oops, let's go and see whether we are still landowners. At least we had fenced it and put someone there. So I think we have that habit of get some little money, get some circle dividends, buy a property. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Very good question. I think one of my pet topics for today would be that. How do you buy the land? And now the critical thing you need to realize is, why do you need to buy that property? Is it a dead investment, an investment for the future? Is it an investment for you are you seriously thinking of building a home there, or a commercial building there? You need to agree in your mind. Is it just if you're throwing money, people have said, those plots called maguta means mafuta. Those plots in Rimbuti, you're being told this plot is 150 payable in 20 installments. Why are you buying it? Are you buying it because you think there's going to be a capital gain over years, and people will come there and pay you a little bit more after 5-10 years? Or are you buying it so that you can build a home there? If it is to build your home there, be very careful, be very wary of buying a property where there are no services. A lot of these properties don't have roads, don't have water, don't have electricity. The cost of putting in those services is extremely high. If you're going to a place which is an open area, and you're told your plot is right in the middle there, 2 kilometers inside a very vast place, know that if those roads have not been done properly, that cost will be borne by you and your neighbors. The cost of pulling in water, power will be borne by you and your neighbors. The thing is, if it always makes sense, if you're buying land from a land buying company or an organization, or even from a SACCO, find out, have they registered a plot owners agreement? What is a plot owners agreement? Anyone who is buying a plot here out of these 50 units is going to sign an agreement saying the type of house they are going to build, the size of house, within which confines the size of house they're going to build, the type of materials they are going to use. It goes all the way to define what animals you can keep. You don't want somebody keeping cows next to you and you've done your dialer digs here. It lowers your value. So it's important, if you don't have a plot owners agreement, drive that conversation with the ones who are selling to you. Are you thinking of creating a plot owners agreement? What are the can-dos? And those agreements should be registered at the Ministry of Lands so that they have the force of law and they're attached to the mother title. Because a lot of times I pity, there are a lot of people who bought in a place, say, like Ongata Ongai. The Ongata Ongai, I remember when I was in high school many years ago, was a growing residential area. But people put up fantastic houses. But because you don't have any control of your neighbor, you find a big bar has opened next to you. Behind you, a block of flats has sprouted 8 stories high. And you did your home 10, 15 years ago. You're in the middle of an island. Many people have been forced to leave those places to go and build somewhere else. The beauty about that, again, on the contrary, is that those properties are worth so much money, so they can actually afford to sell them off and go and build somewhere else quite well. But it is disturbing that in your later years, when you're 60, 70 years, you're being forced to build a home, and yet you thought you had finished off with that story. So it's important that if you're taking a risk by buying a place which is undeveloped, make sure that those guidelines are in place. You'd rather spend a bit more money on a property if you're building a home on it, but make sure that those guidelines are in place. A lot of the gated communities have those guidelines. The Thika Greens, the Pt.2 cities, all of them, even Kawasukari has those guidelines. And that's why Kawasukari has retained the value, because it is a place you can't put up an apartment. The zoning for the apartment and commercial is right at the beginning. The rest of it, you can't put up apartments. Everywhere around it, apartments have come up, except there. So you find your property retains its intrinsic value. If that area was allowed to be put up apartments, the value of those homes, nearly everyone would have moved to go somewhere else. So it's very important that find out if it is an investment for future or a speculative investment, then buy Maguta. But if it is your home you want to build, be careful and even push. Sometimes all it takes is a bit of to have a leader and tell that the selling company, look, we want to form a group here, we want to form a gated the unit here, and these are our rules and guidelines. Going forward, I think this sort of agreements, plot owners agreements, will be very, very key in the people who are selling us land.
Yeah, I think I've had a first-hand experience with that, where we came together as some professionals in the medical sector, bought this 100 acres. And one of the things that I didn't know then was the property, the purchase price was exclusive of the infrastructure cost. So you've bought and you think, okay, here I am, I have a title. No, the titles aren't out yet, but at least I'm done with the big chunk, which is purchasing the property. So now I can see it, I have a property. And then you're slammed with this extra cost of we have to put in roads, we have to put in security, we have to put in, and it's astronomical. It's a figure that is, especially for the gated communities. So my question is, what are the major elements that determine putting up a home, let's say, for the sake of the argument's sake?
Well, certainly the first one obviously is the area, the size of the home. The second one is the location. Where you building? Is it a place which is far from where materials need to be shipped in from quite a distance? The cost of that material, is it going to be a significant part of the deal? Putting up a home in my rural area and putting up a home in a Nairobi suburb would be different in cost. Now, a lot of things that, how is the infrastructure? Are you now going to spend what you're talking about, extra money to do the road to your place, to bring water from a kilometer away? Is there sewer? Is there a connection to sewer? Or are you going to put in a biodigester or a septic tank? Those are the costs. How are the finishes? What level of finishes are you comfortable going for? Those are the costs one needs to look out for. And make sure that with your planning team, all of those factors are addressed. All of those factors are addressed. A lot of gated communities actually charge you a bit more because they have sorted out everything. They have sorted out the water, they've sorted out the boundary fence. Security is a big thing. You can move into a place, and if you say you have an eighth, building a wall around an eighth will cost you the better part of 500,000 shillings, which, if it was not part of your consideration in terms of costing, will take you by surprise. So it is important for you to factor in all exigent costs not related to the house, external to the house, but are critical to the enjoyment of the house. I tell people, be careful about also the location. There's some areas you can build, then no one has told you that the security is so bad that you'll be carjacked, you have visitors come in the middle of the night. So often, how many people have moved, built their home, then have had to come back to a rented unit closer to an urban area because they couldn't live in that heavily where security was a big issue, and they have had to abandon their homes because they couldn't live in them. And if they had done a bit of homework, they would have seen, hey, hapa ni kubaya, let's not buy here. Let's probably go somewhere else and invest there. These are all things to buy. These are all things to think. One thing I wanted to talk about, Daktari, is now that you found your home, how do you design your home to take care of your later years? I have found, especially anyone who wants to put up a fairly large to medium to large house, you're very keen in doing your own home for now. You have 3 kids or you have 4 kids and you're building for them. So you have a 4 or 5 bedroom home. You want to factor in, if your relative came, they have an extra bedroom downstairs. So you have a 6 bedroom home. When you are older and you are 2 of you left in that house or 1 of you left in that house, how is the maintenance of that home going to affect your quality of living? A lot of these homes are very expensive to maintain. You find they cost you between 50 to 200,000 to maintain that home, depending on the garden it has, the various other costs. So how are you going to factor in when you are retired? How can you afford that money when you're retired? I would tell people, think out of the box. Design a home that in future can even be broken down into 4 little apartments. And you can live in one apartment.
How is that?
Yes. You can do a home that is 5, 6 bedrooms, but in future, you've designed a future plan where in future you can have 4 little apartmentlets that you can have smaller families come and move in or single people come and move in. And you have what that does for you. You have a community within your compound. Number 2, it gives you an income within your compound that helps maintain the home. There are many homes. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to envision that. So is it that you make them like en suite so that you're able to, or you make the entrances? I know it's a design thing, but I'm
it's a design issue. It's a design issue. But think of the end now, so that when you're building a home now, the end doesn't surprise you. So if it could be a simple place, where do you locate your staircase? Do you locate your staircase that can be used by separate wings of the house? Or is the staircase stuck somewhere that you have to go through the whole house to go to that staircase at the back? It could be very simple things. So if it could be that you're not giving it to different people to live in, it could be that you want to convert it to an Airbnb facility, either short-term or long. How then do you design your home now that takes care of that aspect later on? How do you even site your house? You could own a small plot, a quarter acre or half an acre, but don't put your house in the middle, because you have family, you have kids. You could sell the house, you could sell half the house, half the plot. Don't site it in a way that messes up your future planning for that site.
I think the other thing for us medics we look at is the disabilities or the chronic illnesses that come with age. So people, build these grand houses and put your master bedroom, on top where the view is fantastic. And then suddenly you have this arthritis and you can't maneuver the stairs. So are those some of the things you consider also?
Yes, certainly. And I think I tell people it's very important. It's always good to have an upstairs master bedroom. But keep in mind, as you being a doctor, the oil on the joints and the knees, the oils are going down. One day you are not going to climb those very steep staircase. So what do? Make sure that your guest bedroom down here is big enough. Unajua what wanasemanga, I'll do a small guest bedroom so that my visitors don't stay for long. They get uncomfortable and they walk away. Keep in mind that one time you might be the visitor in that room because something can happen. You cannot climb up the staircase. It's good.
And I think we also don't consider disability. We are not disability conscious either in our construction. I've been to homes where even just putting in, standard furniture is the maneuvering the corners. And I think this is why you keep on referring to us seeking professional services, which may cost a little bit more, but saves you a lot. Because there are these apartments where I see guys, you're on the 4th floor, so the staircase is too narrow, and you have to use the windows outside to pulley furniture
Yes,
through
yes,
through the
yes.
side. So what would you say about some of those things as we look at how we can reduce some of the overheads related to building?
Yeah, I'm sure that many a furniture has been dropped, being pulled to the balcony. And some people have lost their sofa set, their wardrobes, because the architecture didn't allow for such things. Yes, again, it's very important to factor in such things. Though I must say that technology is such that there, especially for disability, there are ways you can retrofit a house to fit in disability. There are what we call staircases. If you have a staircase, you can actually fit a lift that goes with the railing to take a handicapped person to the next floor. They are there out there. I've seen a few here in Kenya. There are also lifts you can take in case you're incapacitated. There's a lift you can actually put, a more two-person lift in your house that is able to take you from ground floor to the upper floor. So it costs you a little bit more, but there are options available depending on what it is you want to do. But having said that, it is always better to design for it. Retrofitting of anything in building and any other thing is expensive. So it's good you design for it. How do you make a house less expensive to maintain? Make sure that you use as much natural light and air as possible. If you're putting up, say, an office block, in the tropics we have, in the kind of climate God has given us, I personally don't believe we should design to use ACs. We have such wonderful weather. It is a function of designing within the confines of what we have. I see people in Mombasa designing with ACs, but because they take an apartment that was meant to for an area like Nairobi Highland and take it to Mombasa, same design. What do you expect? Of course, it will not work. You have to put an AC. But if you designed the wind coming in from the sea in Mombasa is so strong, if you design, there's a building I designed in Mombasa, an apartment block, where we put a hole in the middle of the apartment. We trap the sea wind, it pushed it through the hole in the apartment so that all apartments got free ventilation from the sea.
Oh, wow.
You do not need an AC there, an AC unit in that apartment, unless you want to. So it's a question sometimes of just thinking out of the box and making sure that you make your house as energy efficient as possible. If you're looking for a solar solution, please investigate. The cheapest solar solution is not necessarily the best, because maintenance of a solar equipment can be very dicey if you've gotten the wrong one. It can give you good service for a year. When it starts breaking down, I am telling you, the people who have cried tears because they invested in the wrong form of solar equipment. Investigate. There are good companies that are doing good solar products here, and you'll find that in the long run, those solar equipment will save you money, will save you a lot of money. In fact, there are places, there are houses right now, you can do that goes between 90 and 100% solar driven, totally green. And those are things to consider when you're looking at operational costs of a house. What are the materials you're using? Are you using materials that are easy to clean, easy the wear and tear? What is the wear and tear on some of these materials you're getting? We are getting a lot of materials, especially this flooring. There's a flooring, the name is laminate floor. A lot of this is imported from China, from Malaysia. Laminate floor is a fantastic floor, but because a lot of people are just buying it without looking at this, where it's originated from, that floor has a propensity for bulking up when it comes to contact with water. So if your house manager is used to wiping the floor with a lot of water, it warps up very fast, and the longevity of that floor is less than 2 years. So live within what you know. If you know you'll be getting house managers that are not quite so driven to take care of these things, plan within that. You get places that are termite infested. There are areas of Kenya, Central Highlands is full of termites, and you insist on getting hardwood. And hardwood, probably you don't do your anti-termite treatment well enough. That becomes fodder. Food is, termites is like ice cream. Wood is like ice cream to termites. This is Christmas. They'll feed on your timber, feed on your doors, feed on your ceilings. One day you'll find that house has collapsed because of termites. So go through the site. If you had an architect who knows his stuff, he'll tell you here, well, this floor is not good for you. We need to use probably a vinyl floor, which gives you the warmth, but doesn't give the termites don't eat the plastic. It's important to treat your termites. A lot of homes are put up without treating for termites, and they're in areas where termites are serious. They end up eating you alive. So these are some of the ways now, looking materials, having professionals that can guide you in materials that will have longevity, they have the beauty, and they fit your pocket. So that they don't come and disturb you when in those later years when you really can't afford to do those things. Yeah, I think that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, there goes my dream for owning a log cabin in Western Province, because we have quite a lot of that. Yeah, but you talk about treating it well, so it's possible.
Yes, it is possible.
I have a question, and I'm imploring the audience. You can use the chat box to ask your questions. There's a question looking at the different building materials. I think people were quite keen. So you spoke about the average brick and mortar. I don't know whether you call it brick and concrete, let's say.
Yeah.
House is around 40,000 per square Kenya shillings per square feet. So if you compare it, are you able to compare it to the different other building materials? I think that's a question that keeps on coming.
Yes, function the cost per square meter is actually a function of the material you're using, number one. Number two, the quality of finishing you're using. So for example, the usual brick and mortar, a standard house will give you, averagely done well, will give you about 40,000 shillings per square meter. High end of the same material will give you anywhere from 50 to 55,000 shillings per square meter, sometimes even 60,000 shillings per square meter, depending on the finishing that you are looking at. If you are looking at a standard finish, say with panel technology, our panel technology, the 40,000 now becomes our high-end unit. And a standard unit now comes from anywhere from 32 to 35,000 shillings per square meter. If you are looking at a school, for example, which has very little finishing, go downs which have very little finishing, our panel technology can even go down to 22,000 shillings per square meter, because that one is primarily just walls and a roof. It doesn't have the toilets, it doesn't have the kitchens. And toilets and kitchens are some of the most highly concentrated areas of cost per square meter in a house. Because now everything in a kitchen is high cost. The floors are high cost, they're tiled, the walls are tiled, the walls have cabinetry, the low level and high level, which are all expensive. There are services, the sink there, which needs to be piped out. Same with a toilet. A toilet has a WC, it has a wash and basin, it has a shower. All those are equipment which are expensive, and it is tiled. So you find, if you look at the price per square meter on a toilet or a bathroom, it's probably closer to 100, 120. But now, when you compare now and do the average with the verandas, with the living rooms, which now are much lower, you find an average cost. That's why we say an average cost is 40,000 shillings. But if you look at specific aspects of a house, you find then that. So you find a house, a 4-bedroom house with say 5 bathrooms will be more expensive than a 4-bedroom house with say 2 bathrooms because of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So all those matters now, it depends on the material you're using and on the way you're sourcing that material. For example, a brick house, which is being say burnt in for lack of a better,
yes. We have a lot of that.
Yes, yeah. And being burnt in the same homestead. You see, the cost per square meter of the wall is so low, labor is so low, it is probably, you probably finish your house with about 8,000 shillings per square meter. Because everything is local. It's there. It's there and it's local. And you're probably not doing very high-end finishes. You're probably doing screed floors. You're probably doing screed walls. You're not doing too much addition to that. The only probably thing you put up is probably a toilet and a shower unit and a sink for the kitchen. That's it. The rest of the house is local. Yeah, so that makes it now very, very, very cheap. So if your material is local, the labor is local, then you achieve extremely low rates of construction. The more you import, either local importation or international importation, then the higher the rates. We've done homes and apartments which reach 150, 200,000 shillings per square meter, because a lot of the stuff is imported. It's high end and it's imported. That doubles the price, triples the price. Yeah.
So given let's say orange to orange, comparing orange to orange, if you have let's say the modular building, maybe tell people again about the modular construction and then the concrete construction. What would you say in terms of cost comparison with similar finishes?
Similar finishes, our modular steel is cheaper by 20 to 25%. Why is it cheaper? It's not that the price per square area of walling is cheaper. No, it is cheaper because you are omitting things like foundations. There are no foundation footings. There are no, when you're doing our slab, we do not use pallets. We do not use poles. So it's the things you are omitting. It's also cheaper because we save 70% of the time. So as opposed to taking 8 months on a building, I'll do it in 3 months. So that has to have a consideration in terms of time. It's actually, if you're staying in an apartment, you're paying some 80,000. I have saved you 5 months of paying that that particular rent, which has to go towards the saving towards the building.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a hand up by Winnie. Winnie, I don't know, are the hosts able to unmute Winnie Nzamu? She has put up her hand. Go ahead, Winnie. Please ask your question.
I'm sorry, which Winnie? There are several Winnies.
Winnie Nzamu.
Okay. I wanted to ask a question, but the chat is disabled.
Oh,
I wanted to ask about your comments about imported finishing and locally done finishing, like the kitchen finishing, which is more expensive and which is more long-lasting and durable.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you for that. As Edgar, Architect Mugo is answering, the host kindly enable chat. I think people are unable to talk to us. So go ahead, Mugo, please.
Okay, thank you, Winnie. That's a good question. Now, it depends on what you want. If, over the years, I know probably even as late as 5 years ago, it used to be that a lot of good kitchens used to come from out of the country. Right now, there are a lot of very good kitchen manufacturers in Kenya, in Nairobi, in Mombasa. So it is important you look for what, and generally speaking, a local manufacturer, in my opinion, would be better because you are able to visit the factory, look at the product they are using. A lot of these kitchens that come from abroad are very sealed. The board is extremely sealed. You have no idea what they have put in. There's a board you can see that is what we call a particle board. It has lots of holes inside. And there's a hole, the same board can be MDF, very solid. So a lot of kitchens, good kitchens here, are made with MDF, solid. But you find a lot of the ones out there are made with fairly cheap board, but covered to look extremely attractive. So you find that, and this is what actually a lot of people who imported the kitchens in the initial years found out, that after 2 years, 1 year, the doors are hanging, they are loose, because of the product that was used was not the best. I would recommend personally, I think we have over 10, 15, 20 very good manufacturers of kitchens in Nairobi. Please visit them, find out what it is. They can even give you a design to fit your kitchen, give you several options of materials, and you are able to go and see and touch. Your architect, your professional team should be able to advise you what material, whether that material is a good product or a bad product. It's important for you to be able to see what you're buying. A lot of the ones we buy out there, and we've been to China. In China, you could even go and get something in a showroom that's extremely good. If you don't have anyone checking out on the importation process, what you get here could be a bit different from what you saw at the factory. So it's important that you have that factory to, if you insist on bringing from out there, make sure from factory to your home, there is visibility of the products that they have used. I hope Winnie have assisted you in that question.
Yes, and we have other questions coming in, Architect Muga. So we have a question from, let me see, explain the difference between hollow blocks and normal blocks. Which ones are preferable to use? And then while you're there, talk about roofing. I think we also didn't tackle much about roofing last time. So someone is asking what's your take on flat roofs and leaking?
Okay, thank you. Perfect. Let me tackle hollow blocks are basically manufactured blocks. Manufactured blocks, they're made of a light, the concrete mixture. Quarry dust mixed with a bit of cement, pressed together, and once they are put in a mold, they come up with a hole. You must have seen them. They have a hole inside, but they've got a casing on the outside, which is probably about an inch thick going around. They have been designed to carry a home. Some are designed as load-bearing, depending on the mix of the concrete, but most are designed as partition walls. Partition walls meaning the wall doesn't carry weight, doesn't carry the slab, but it is able to divide one room from another room. That is what a partition is. Just partitioning without able to carry weight. Now, your local block, which is now natural block, either from Juja stone or quarry, which is chipped, is much more solid. It's a solid stone. A lot of them are extremely strong, like the quarry stones are extremely strong. They're able to carry slabs by their own strength. And therefore, you do not need the steel columns or to do any other sort of the reinforcement. You come up with your beam and your slab, and that solid stone is able to take the weight. The difference is simply, I am a lover. If I was to use stones, I would use blocks. Why? Because they are manufactured, they use less cement to do your plaster because the tolerances are finer. If you use now quarry stones, you use a very thick plaster, which costs more money. If you use manufactured blocks, the plaster is thinner and therefore less money. You would find that the blocks are normally a bit more expensive. Quarry stone will probably cost you, landed on your site at 60, 65 shillings. A block will start from 90 shillings going up. But overall, they are more efficient in use.
Okay, so I see a number of questions that I'd like the modular team in the background to answer because some are directly answerable. But as we're winding up, we want to find out about whether the modular design, and maybe Mugo just briefly go through the modular design because we tackled it a lot last time, but maybe a couple of people weren't there. Can the modular design build a high-rise apartment, say 4 to 5 floors? If so, what's the expected saving?
If we are using our modular apartment, and probably there are people here who probably have not seen, let me share a document, a picture. You know, pictures speak words. Let me just, let me just, this is a container unit we are doing somewhere in Kataka. So we also convert containers depending on what we're doing. Now, this is shops doing with our modular unit. The modular space, these panels, they're most cost effective when used for ground and first floor. At the very most, probably another extra floor, top, ground first and maximum second. Now, beyond this point, the steel columns, which you are seeing here, these vertical points, now become too big. Which means now they become expensive. And now it defeats now the cost-saving nature of our products. So these are fantastic for shops that you want to put up quickly. This is something we're doing up in Tasia. This is the final image of what we are doing, what you've seen.
Wow. This is a whole shopping mall.
Yes, this we've converted. This I showed you the last time. This is a bungalow unit we did with 2 containers with our modular product there with EPS. Actually, this was not even modular, this was EPS. And this is the final unit. Again, this took about 60 days to put up. So this is the interior, and I was saying this interior gives you the warmth without having the termite issues because these floors are vinyl floors. These are maisonette. This is the image of that maisonette when it's finally done. This is a process. This is where we have reached, and we are heading there. This is done completely in our modular panels. It can go, yes, if you want to use it for 4 or 5 levels, then the steel will be a bit expensive, but it is possible to do a combination of container and modular panel in our panels that can go even 5, 6 floors, because it's a question of stacking containers upon containers and factoring in our panels in between. So it is a question of finding out what the cost benefit ratio is. And sometimes in an area where you have a lot of black cotton soil, you find using a container really helps you because you don't need to excavate the black cotton. You build on top of it, and the container takes the loading. Because it's got a bigger surface area and saves you money. This is the same house, which we are quickly putting up the glazing on it. This is a home we are doing with containers and our panels combined. Ongoing, I think I showed you this the last time. This is where it is ongoing. This is the final vision of that particular home. Yes, so it does, yes, then depend on what you are putting up. If you want a 4 or 5 story home, then you would not use steel columns because of the costing. Then you'd use regular concrete the pillars or columns, then infill with either our panels or EPS. That gives you now the combination of costs and time, because time is very, very, very key when you're doing a project like this. I hope that has clarified one or two things.
Yes, I think you've landed safely on time.
Yes.
So speaking of time, imagine, Hugo, we've spent 1.5 hours.
Yes.
It's flown that fast. We want to respect your time and stop at exactly, what's this, 9 o'clock. So we want to appreciate everyone who's logged in. Today's session was covering finances and how can we build easy, considering the money that we have. What do we need to consider in terms from planning? We've had about involving the specialists even before we purchase our property. That can actually save you a lot of money. So all the way to construction, and of course there's quite a lot that we can't cover, and this will require one-on-one consultation. The modular team has shared their contacts. Feel free to reach out, not just to them, but anyone else who's registered as a professional in this sector should be able to guide you. I want to appreciate everyone who's dialed in. Thank you to the modular team, the people behind the scenes. And look out for the third series. I think, Mugo, we left quite a number of questions unanswered on finishes, and perhaps maybe our third webinar, if you are kind enough to join us in a couple of weeks, we would go straight into, we've put up the structure, what do we do inside? Thank you very much. Mugo, do you want to say a parting word before we go?
No. I think I'm excited to reach out to Kenyans and help them in their journey to own a home or to do a commercial project that increases their income. And any question, kindly feel free to reach out to us in terms of email or WhatsApp. Our numbers are on the chat. Kindly feel free to reach out to us even before we meet again. But I'll be most happy to come through and just answer any queries that you may have. I do hope that our conversation has helped you if you're in that space of wanting to build a home or invest in the real estate the sector. And the more of us who invest, the better level of housing is in Kenya. So it is something we're doing well. And be asking questions. Ask questions of your circles, ask questions of your sellers of land, ask questions of your county governments, ask questions and ask and demand answers. If you're paying taxes and you've got a big area, people have bought plots in, the county government should come and give you those services. That's what you're paying for. It's unfair for you to buy the land and you expect to put up roads and services which the county government is charging taxes for. But that's a conversation for another time. Probably next time we'll see how else we can tackle such things. Thank you very much for having me, Daktari.
You're welcome. So have a good night. We'll allow everyone to leave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you and God bless.